Time to start another project, so I gotta figure out what I want to do here. I've got this National NC 155. I've got another one right here. I've got an S20R. I've got 3 of them here. There's another one underneath that one. This is the best one as far as cabinet and all is concerned. It's the best one I got. Or I've got this. Get this set of Allen wrenches out of the way. This SX24. Bought this one recently at a ham fest. Don't even remember what I paid for it, but I'm sure it was very little. It's in pretty decent. The cabinet's in real good shape. I think all I'd have to do to this one is clean it real good and put a coat of satin clear on it. Just something to kind of make it look better, bring out the color in the black color. So which one do I want to do? I think I'll do one of these Nationals. I've got a friend that is interested in ham radio. He's about 75 years old, never had a license or anything. He was in Vietnam. He was a helicopter pilot. He was shot down 3 times and survived. But he was telling me he'd like to have something to listen to the hams and see if he was interested and maybe get a license. So this is ham band only. Might be better to do him a general coverage, but I'll fix this one up and loan it to him, let him listen to it a little while. These Nationals, and watching videos on YouTube, they have some quirks and some mechanical things that can cause you trouble. So I think I'm going to tackle that one and loan it to him for a little while. It was an interesting radio. I've got to do one day. This is one of those old radios that they put in motels that, you know, you put a quarter in and listen to it for an hour or whatever. And I want to do that one day. All of the corn mechanism is gone off of it. Can't see back, it's dark, but still I'd like to get it playing. Says, night and day, enjoy your stay. And that part I can't quite read. The middle of it says TRAT radio. So anyway, back to the National. We're going to get it out and see what it'll do. Check it out here. One thing I noticed is this method of calibrating the dial. It actually slides, pushing that slides that dial back and forth. That's kind of neat. And here's where you turn the crystal calibrator on or off, but I think the crystal calibrator was an option. And so, I don't know if this one has one or not. RF gain, antenna tuner, band switch, function's kind of interesting. I don't know if you can see that or not, but this half of the dial is the AGC is turned on. So you got AM, noise limiter, single sideband and CW, which I guess turns the BFO on. Once you cross over the middle way, this half of the dial is AGC off. And I got it backwards. This is on, the other side is off. So then you've got AM, noise limiter, and single sideband. So depending on which way the knob is, or which way which half of the dial you got it set on, is automatic noise limiter, or AGC rather. Like this big old dial, but I can see the pointer has a problem. It's not moving freely. And I think this dial is supposed to spin real fast, and it's binding a little bit, which is probably just dried grease, which I think is another problem they had with these Nationals. Selectivity 5.3.6. Standby and receive. Volume control, and then the BFO. And I'm a little worried about that. It's awful loose. And I looked in the back, and it is sort of like the old Helicrafters. Looks like it's got a coil, and a shielded coil. And the old Helicrafters, when they get like that, it can be problems. So that don't look too good. We'll just have to see. All the tubes are there. Chassis looks nice and clean. But this thing is loaded with these miniature IF transformers. Let's see if I can see here. I hate to turn this light on because it puts the LED frequency bars in it. But I see 3, 6, 11. There's another one back over. There's 2 back over there. So that's 13. Here's another one, 14. I see 14 of those miniature IF cans, and probably some of them for oscillators, etc. But I wonder how many of them have silver migration problems. This thing could be a while if they have. Hopefully, maybe some of them have the capacitors, fixed capacitors soldered on the inside rather than the little mica wafers. Just have to see. What's this say? What does that say? Testing laboratories approved, something operated radio. CSA. That's Canadian, isn't it? That's a Canadian approval, I think. I don't know if you can put the light back in here. Maybe you can see that BFO coil back in there. And the BFO knob on the front real loose and wobbly. Hopefully that won't be a lot of trouble. The problem I have here is the sun shining right towards me in the window, and it wants to wash out the video, but we'll get it going. I guess this is for the send receive relay accessory. Oh, okay, yeah. This is where the calibrator is plugged in. It says calibrator right there. So it's an external calibrator, S meter adjust, speaker, and antenna. Alright, let's take the cover off of it and see what we got. I lucked out on that BFO control. See the little set screw? The knob was just loose on the shaft, so it's nice and firm now. So that's one fix I don't have to worry about. I solved another problem. Took this knob off, and behind it there are like 3 or 4 ball bearings, and the grease was dried, so just a dab or 2 of WD-40 solved that problem. So that knob actually spins now. Dial's moving. Had another problem where that indicator was hanging on a screw they've got that holds this front on. Had to do a little adjusting on that to get it away from that. Needs to be a little more vertical, but every time I try to touch that, it causes some other problem, so I think I'm going to live with that. But that knob's spinning good now, so I think we solved that problem, and we haven't even started on the radio. I'm going to put this National NC155 on the Variac and turn it on, and let's see what happens. Alright, got 43 volts at 20 milliamps. Let it sit there a few seconds and see what goes on. Okay, 62 volts, still 20 milliamps. Let that cook for a few seconds. Always helps to turn the power on. So we're up to 61 volts at 320 milliamps. Pilot lights are burning. Looks good so far. 74 volts at 430 milliamps. 97 volts at 610 milliamps. 110 volts at 710 milliamps. And I think I do have an audio. I've got a speaker hooked to it, and I do get a popping sound when I switch the band switch. So I think audio is working, but I don't hear any loud spewing or, let's see if it, a little bit of popping when I change the band switch. But I don't think I have any serious shorts or anything. 110 volts at 700 milliamps. I'm not sure what this is supposed to draw, but that doesn't sound too bad to me. So I'm going to take it back to the other bench and hook an antenna and all to it and see what happens. I looked it up in the manual, and this thing is rated at about 75 watts. And at 0.71 or 710 milliamps at 110 volts, that's about 78, so it's pretty darn close to what it's specified. So I've got it over here now on the other bench. I've got an antenna hooked to it, I've got a speaker hooked to it, and let's see if we got any. I hear nothing. When I set it to single sideband CW, I hear some spewing. It's wide open and I can barely hear it, but I hear it. Let's see. Antenna tuner is working, so that means the RF chain is working and the audio chain is working. Just not picking up a lot, so let me tune the dial here and get it out of that glare. The band is on 80 meters, which is not to be very good this early in the morning. So it's pretty dead. Let's try 40. Band switch definitely needs cleaning. Well, got a single sideband QSO on 40 meters, and the BFO is working. Let's try the antenna tuner again. Didn't turn the RF gain up. Let's try some of that. Yes, meter's working. We've got a CW signal here. I tell you the truth, I think we got a pretty good receiver here. I think all I'm going to need to do is I'll replace the filter caps. I haven't opened up the bottom of this radio, but I don't think there may not be any paper caps in here. I think it's all ceramic disc and micas. And the way it sounds like there's no silver migration. And like I say, these IF transformers in this thing may have the fixed capacitors across them, and not those old mica wafers that they put in those cheap ones. So clean all of the controls, the band switch, test the tubes, clean the chassis up, wax the front, wax the cabinet, clean all this white crap off of these knobs, and we may have a good radio. Just as a thought, first of all, the bottom of this radio is pristine, and I don't see any paper caps. There's a few ceramic discs like that big black one, and there are several, these are Mylars, they should be okay, and then a lot of micas, small value micas in the RF section. I don't know what I'm going to do about this electrolytic over here. Right underneath that, what is that, look like a 330 ohm, that big 330 ohm resistor there. underneath it are the terminals for that electrolytic. Look like it's 4. So I would like to put a terminal strip in there and mount individual electrolytics, but boy, there's no room in this area. This is a populated area. I don't want to go way over here somewhere and mount them and run wires over there. I may be better off just taking this can and restuffing it. So I got to make that decision. I'm starting to rethink this electrolytic situation. I'm looking here at this electrolytic. Here's one pin. This is the 20 microfarad at 25 volts, and it has a single wire coming up here, yellow wire, and it goes to pin let me look at this again. On the schematic, it goes to pin 3. Yep, 1, 2, 3. So that's pin 3. And that yellow wire comes down here and connects to this 20 at 25. And then you've got this 330 ohm resistor. It's a 330, 180 ohm resistor that goes to ground. So essentially what you have here is 20 microfarad in parallel with 180 ohm resistor that goes to ground. So if I move that up here and connect that parallel combination to here, ground it to here, I can get rid of having to put one of that 20 over here. Also, here's another 40 microfarad pin that has a single wire on it, and it's going to pin 2 of the 5Y3, and that's all that's connected to that 40. So I can move that 40 microfarad here, probably ground it right here to this ground terminal. That'll move 2 of those electrolytics away from this area. I haven't looked at these other 2 40s yet, but I can, if I free up that space, I may be able to get the other 2 40s in this area, since I would only have to put 2 there. And after I study these others, I might be able to even get rid of, move one of those somewhere else, one of those 40s, move it to a more direct location to where it's being used. So let me work on that. I moved that 20 mic at 25 volts and the 180 ohm resistor, and soldered them directly to the tube where they were essentially running to in the first place. So that got all that away from this area over here on top of the electrolytic. So now let me move this 40 microfarad. I installed this 47 on pin 2 of the 5Y3, and I found a nice convenient ground right over here. So that one has been relocated. Hope I don't have to get to anything under it. I haven't measured these resistors yet. Hopefully they're close. Well, it looks like I'm going to have to mount these other 240s in this area. So before I do that, I'm going to check all of these resistors in this area, because if I cover up that area with 2 of those 40 mics, it'll be difficult to get to these resistors. I've already checked this one right here. This is a 470K, and it's reading about 560, so I'm going to replace that one. I checked all these resistors in this area here where I'm going to have to lay those Electrolytics, those other 240 mics. I'm going to be covering up a lot of this area, I suppose. So I checked all these resistors, and I had to replace most of them. You'll see all the little modern resistors in there I replaced. This was an 18 meg. I didn't have one, so I had to series an 8 and a 10. But anyway, most of the resistors in that area, I'm glad I did it, because if I do put those Electrolytics across there and cover up that area, it'd be very difficult to get in there later and replace them. I cut those terminals off of that electrolytic can. Here's one set of wires that'll go one of the 40 mics. Then here this big resistor, and another wire goes to the other 40. Then there's a 330 ohm 2 watt that connects these two, between these two. So I'm going to see if I can get a terminal strip in here. Try to solder it right there to where that solder glob is, and mount those other 240s in here. There it is. All of them are in there. It's a blivet. I believe it's 10 pounds of you-know-what in a 5-pound bag, but it's solid. Only thing I hate about it is covering up a lot of components underneath in case I have to get in there and change something or do something. So now the acid test, I need to plug it back up and see if it's still playing, and see if I make sure I haven't made any mistakes along the line.
Here for a couple of minutes, and we'll see whether or not the signal gets any stronger. I have nothing to pass. Have a blessed and glorious day today, my friend. All right, and we'll ask if anyone needs our help. Going net control. Anyone need that Steve before he leaves? Give him a call now. Kilo Echo 8, Yankee Sierra Juliet. I stand by, Lyman. You need?
Okay, it's must have not have made any major mistakes. Seems to be working. It's 20-meter sideband at about 11 o'clock in the morning here on the East Coast. So, the only thing left to do now, I'm going to have to check all the resistors in this radio, because in that small section I worked, I had to replace most of them. Whether it's really needed or not is debatable, but I'm going to do that. Still haven't tested the tubes, and do that and clean it up, and it ought to be complete. I cleaned the chassis. It cleaned up real nice. Those dark spots, I don't know, some kind of stain, they wouldn't come off, but mostly it was just dirt and dust. And I tested all the tubes. All of the tubes were really, really strong. Amazing. Don't usually get that. When I plugged it up previously, after I had done some recapping, it didn't play, but this 6CW5 was not making good contact in the socket. So I cleaned all these tubes. I scraped all the pins, put some cleaner in the socket, cleaned the pins, did all of that. So now I'm going to plug it up and make sure I haven't done something wrong and make sure it's still playing. I had a problem, and so I started checking things, and I found that my voltages were extremely high. What was supposed to be 160 volts was really about 190, and what was supposed to be like 145 volts was like 172. So I looked around on the web. I found this article. I'll try to focus in on this website. It's at people.ohio.edu, and I won't try to read the rest of it, but anyway, it's done by, let me get back to the first page here. KB8TAD, and it's a document about the restoration of his 155 National, and he's got a paragraph here called Hot Transformer, and he talks here about the radio is rated to operate at 105 to 125, but it's also rated to draw 75 watts, and he was drawing 90, and I think I was probably drawing more than that. And so what he did was get the schematic here. Fine print schematic. I hope you can read it there. But right there at the input, I got to get back over here. Right there on the filament of that 5Y3, he installed an extra 150 ohm resistor between pin 2 there and that 330 ohm resistor to drop his voltage. Well, what I did was change that 330 ohm resistor to, I think it was like 400. Didn't help a lot. Well, it dropped it some, but not enough. So what I did, I had some 350 ohms, and I seriesed that with the 330 that was already in there. So I've got about 680 ohms of 10 watt resistor there. And right there, I just got them tacked in. But I was able to get the 160 down to about 170, and the 145 got it about 155, so it was 172, so it come down to 155. So I'm still a little high, but there doesn't seem to be any consequences. The resistors don't seem to get any hotter than they did before. The transformer is, you can at least lay your fingers on it. Before you couldn't, and that was his results. See, he was concerned about the heat of the transformer, and his was like mine, you couldn't lay your hand on it, and so now it is, you can lay your hand on it, so that seems to help. So I'm going to leave that in there. It seems to work, and I'll take these off, and I'm going to have to mount a terminal strip or something in here to mount them on. It's kind of sloppy right now. The things you run into restoring these old radios. This is coil number L1, in this national receiver, and it tunes the 2215 kilohertz first IF. And I just started my alignment, did the 230 kilohertz section. It turned out pretty good. Moved on to this, and I couldn't get the slug to move. The slug was frozen in this little plastic coil form. I actually broke the end off of this tuning tool trying to get it to turn. Just wouldn't move. I tried everything. I even said, well, maybe a little bit of heat on it will work, and my intention was to use a little bit of heat, but of course, as always, I overdid it and warped the end of that coil form. I think I can still use it. Bottom line is, eventually I just had to crush that old slug to get it out of there. In the meantime, I pulled the wires loose on this base. That little plastic coil form just sits in that little brass or copper socket there. It's not glued or anything. So pull that out, pull the wires loose. I think I got them back right. So I went in my junk box and I found this coil. It's the same plastic type coil, and the let me loosen this slug up here. This slug fits perfectly inside of this. So I don't know what the metal content of this slug is versus the slug that came out of it, but I'm going to put this slug in and see if I can get this coil to tune. So we'll go from there. I was able to repair that coil. That slug I put in there seemed to tune up just fine. So we've got a working radio, and this is about all I'm going to do to this one. I've polished the front of it, cleaned the knobs, cleaned that fuzz off the knobs, and I aligned it, and it seems to be working pretty good. Right now I'm listening on 20 meters. Some kind of, not sure whether it's a contest or a county gathering party. They keep talking about what county they're in, so it may be a county, worked all counties kind of party going on. Okay, that's all for this one. I've got another one. I'll probably wait a while to do that one, but learned a lot about this National NC 155 in the process, so maybe the next one will be a little easier.